applause. Good evening all. Give it up for Academy Award nominee, Earle Haley. If you guys have questions, the microphone is up there. Don't be shy. He's not going to use it on you. Congratulations on your host. Has anybody seen your host yet?
Awesome.
Okay, for anybody who doesn't know what it is, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So, how many of you guys are going to your host? What's that? It's a horror movie that we did in about a year ago, but it came out October 14th, and it's from that. It's very Saw-like, you know. It was inspired by Saw, and I play a game show host who tortures the shit out of these young adults, and it's a pretty crazy movie, and glad you got their ears covered. So, but yeah, it's really wild. It's got some great graphics from the standpoint of that they're, what do we call them, practical graphics, you know, so really cool horror kills. And it was a really challenging part. It's a lot of fun to work on, and it was tough, and it's a cool movie. So there you go.
How did you wind up here in the world?
You know, let me also say that movie came out October 14th, and it's on digital on demand on like Amazon and Apple, and you know, for rent. So that's where the thing is living right now.
Do you know if there's any plans for a physical media release on it by any chance? Any plans for physical media on it, like a Blu-ray?
That I don't know. I mean, I would imagine, but I have no idea. I mean, because it just came out, you know, a month ago, and it's still pretty much in the digital VOD world.
Anybody got any questions? Like I said, the microphone is open. I think many of us in here got introduced to your work through Watchmen. And I saw earlier today you were reunited with a piece of your childhood. So if you could talk to us a little bit about your time as a childhood actor, and then we'll go through your career as you came back for Watchmen.
Well, geez, man. I started when I was, I don't know what you guys know, but I started acting when I was 5. And so I started doing the voiceover for Dennis the Menace cartoons and commercials. Dennis the Menace was the spokesperson, or the whatever you call it, for Dairy Queen. And that led to me also being Tony Tiger Jr. For a lot of people like, who? But there was Frosted Flakes had Tony the Tiger Sr., where it was like, dude, great. And I played Tony the Tiger Jr., where it was for Frosted Rides, and we came up with their so warm and good. And I did a bunch of TV stuff, and it led to this movie that I worked on when I was 14 called Bad News Bears. And so he was just alluding to this thing. That was the I'd already been working for 10 years, but that was the one that was, you know, I think really kind of pushed me out into the world of acting, and you know, where I started to work more, and people were familiar with my work and stuff. But anyway, there's a guy by the name of Eric. His last name is hard for me to remember. He found the actual motorcycle from the Bad News Bears. It's a 50-year-old motorcycle. They found it, they refurbished it, and they brought it here and they gifted it to me, and it's over at my booth, where it's like this 50-year-old motorcycle that's brand new. I mean, they just cleaned it up, and I think they redid the engine and just did all of this stuff. But it's kind of it's a real trip, like just seeing that thing. And the real bummer about it is, though, you would think that, you know, me being a little kid back then, that now I would get up to that thing and it would be this tiny bike that I would just hulk over, and I'd get on it and be this tiny little thing. Well, it turns out I still fit the bike. It didn't grow a lot since that. But, okay. Now I'm depressed. But yeah, it was wild. So pop over there and check it out. It's pretty cool.
Where did they find it after all this time?
You know, they told me, but my head's swimming around it, and I can't. I do know they had to source a lot of the fix-it parts out of Germany and stuff, but I think they found the bike in the middle of the country somewhere. Yeah. But yeah, that was pretty mind-boggling. My head was swimming. That was the first thing that we did when I got here, and so we were kind of backstage and stuff. And these guys were interviewing me, and they brought me over to this bike, and it's pretty pristine.
So you're, no pun intended, a jack of all trades. You've done acting, directing, producing. It seems like after childhood acting stopped, you started transitioning into other roles. How did that come about?
Well, the thing for me is mostly really acted. I directed one movie, and then I did end up, there was this, that kind of typical thing where I did The Bad News Bears, and then I did a couple of sequels to that. I did Breaking Away, which is another really cool movie. It was such a good script, amazing director, wonderful cast. Didn't lose anything in there that actually kind of tanked when it came out, and then went on to be kind of a hit in HBO. Because people talk about that movie like it was, they're just as familiar with that as they are the other movies from that era. Maybe it's because Tom Cruise became so big, so I think in the HBO world and VOD, was, a lot of people have seen that. But at any rate, so it's kind of the typical thing of being this child actor that kind of started to thin out a little bit in my 20s, and then towards the end of my 20s, it was really difficult kind of finding work, and I decided that, man, I think I need to move on. So I quit acting, and it was like one of those things where I was approaching 30, and as an actor, I've always waited for the phone to ring. And that would lead me to the next gig, and the phone wasn't ringing, and I realized, crap, man, I gotta do something. So I started into the world of, I got a job like driving a limousine, I was delivering pizza for a while, was doing all these various things, and then I found myself somehow landing a client where I was just, since I knew production inside and out, I started to learn about like marketing, and there was this direct marketing company or a network marketing company. I started doing their videos, directing these videos and stuff, and then that led to me working in the corporate world in marketing and communications in Las Vegas for a while, and then I moved to San Antonio, Texas about 25 years ago and started my own production company. After working for a couple of years with a friend of mine, I partnered up with their company where we were making local commercials, corporate videos, and things like that. And it was going great, life was humming along, and then the phone rang. It's like 15 years later, after having basically quit acting and moved on, Steve Zalian, renowned director, writer, and Sean Penn were looking for me to possibly play Sean Penn's bodyguard in a movie called All the King's Men. And it's like, they wanted me to throw down an audition. I threw down this audition, I sent it in. They actually found me. I was on my honeymoon in France, and I get this call. And so when I came back, I did this audition, I sent it, and I get this call that Steve Zalian would like to meet me. So I jump on a plane, I fly out there. And it was also a trip to say, like, the audition itself was I hadn't done this in a while, and so I'm kind of digging into this role, and I do this scene, and I kind of felt this rush of like, wow, man, this is a part of me. This is what I do. Just the skill set or whatever you want to call it, just kind of came rushing back. Sent it to Steve. He's like, man, can you fly out here? So I'm like, oh wow, shit, man, this could really happen. So I get on a plane, I fly out there, and I'm meeting with Steve, and we're talking, and I'm like, what made you think of me for this? And he's like, well, I was thinking about this part, and I was thinking, I was wondering, I remembered you from when you were a kid, and I was wondering what you were doing now, what you looked like, and I really liked what you did as a kid. And then he said, and you won't believe this, but he said, I have written your name down on this list. You gotta imagine, I've been gone for like decades, right? He goes, yeah, I wrote your name down on this short list of a few people for this role. And he said, and then I was talking to Sean, and he said, hey, he said to Sean, hey, who do you think of for Sugar Boy? And Sean goes, how about Earle Haley? Just out of the blue. And so these two guys independently thought about me for this role. And again, mind-boggling that I'd been gone so long. So at any rate, after our meeting with Steve, we decided that part of our meeting would go off and we're having this lunch. And we're an hour into this meeting. I'm certain this guy's gonna lean over the table and go, well, so do you want to do the part? So he finally leans over and he says, well, listen, I can't really hire you for this movie because I cast it last week. I just kind of saw my whole world flash before my eyes. But he said, listen, he said, the guy that was gonna do the role, he had this other thing, and they wanted me to decide because they needed to pick which role to do. And he said, let me try to work it out, and we'll see what happens. So a week goes by, and I'm just dying. Because, that call could have went either way, but they called, and they worked it out. The other actor was gracious enough to go on to the other thing, and they brought me in. And then that movie, after I did that, I think 4 or 5 months after that, I luckily found myself on the set of Little Children, and then that thing just blew up. And that was kind of pretty, just an interesting story on that one too. It was the people kind of submitted my agent, or it wasn't my agent at the time because I'd just come back, right? So this all could have led nowhere, you know what I mean? And so this guy that was kind of covering me to be my agent said, why don't you do an audition for Todd Field for this movie? You're kind of right for this part. It was written completely different. It was written for a big, tall, overweight guy. But my agent was going, but he got the notion of this small, thin guy. And he said the stars in the movie are kind of cast, so usually a director maybe wants to try to put his own thumbprint on something. So I did this audition, and we sent it to Todd Field, and then Kate Winslet is in the movie. She's the star of the movie, and she was also on All the King's Men. And so, we had all met and many dinners and stuff. That was like a long 5 months, 6 months in New Orleans shooting that movie. So Todd looks at that and he's changed the ending. So he wanted me to come out and kind of do in front of him like this new little ending to Little Children, audition in front of him. And when he was talking to Kate, he said, hey, listen, I'm thinking of Earle Haley for this part of this thing. And she told Todd, it's like total kismet. So I'm almost getting verklempt saying this, but she goes, oh, wow. He'd be great. If you have him in to read, I want to come in and read across from him. So she went in there and read across from me at the audition. So it's she's so those 4 guys are my champions: Steve Zalian, Sean Penn, and Todd Field, and Kate. All my champions in terms of kind of took all those guys to reignite this thing. And then since then, I've been kind of working nonstop, and that was 20 years ago. So, and I think, I'm not sure, but I think I'm taller now.
How did you wind up on Zack Snyder's radar for Watchmen?
That was something that the agent was aware of. These guys, nowadays everybody kind of does these self-tapes, but there was this period of time where it almost felt like, and I'm sure I didn't make this up, but since I lived in Texas, I was doing everything via self-tape. So it started with sending in VHS tapes, then into oh wow, look, CD-ROM, we're really moving along, and then finally into uploading stuff on the internet. But at any rate, my agent at the time, Warren Zavala, was like, you should do a tape for this. So I read the thing, and I could tell this thing was just gangbusters. So I pulled out all the stops on the audition tape, kind of created a pretty extravagant audition tape, and we sent it in. You know, didn't hear anything for a while. Didn't hear anything. I really wanted that part, and I remember bugging my agent. So, did you hear anything? No, not yet. Must have been like a month or so went by, and my agent said, "Listen, they are totally talking now. They're doing the whole thing with movie stars, so it's going to be, you know, like Tom Cruise and Sean Penn, you know, all of these guys." And he's like, "Dude, let it go. It's gone. It's gone." So okay, shoot. All right, next thing, just kind of keep hustling away and seeing what can happen. But about another month goes by, and I get a call, and it's like, "Yeah, they changed their mind. They're going to go with not movie stars, and they want you to play the part. And Patrick Wilson is going to be in it as well." So got to work with him a second time, and it was just a really, really great cast. Working with Zack Snyder was just a dream. His passion on that movie was super contagious. I mean, we all just fell in love with I really liked the script. Of course, everybody read the graphic novel, just fell in love with that. It's just the depth in there, the symbolism. Like you can read that book forever and just look at every single frame. It's catch almost every little squiggle in there is symbolic somehow. I mean, just little things that, you know, for me, not being a well-versed comic book reader, was like, wow. But yeah, working on that thing was a dream. It might be the most fun I've had working on something. It's hard to like pick a favorite role, but man, that thing was just, it was scary, you know. Also, knowing that it was such a seminal piece, and that, you know, if you fuck up Rorschach, you're gonna hear about it for the rest of your life. And yeah, man, it was an amazing experience. That was like 6 months, and we were also in Vancouver. Fell in love with Vancouver, man. It was so cool. Really liked working on it.
I know Zack Snyder gets a lot of flack on social media. Could you tell us about what it's like working with him as a director, and if he gave you any, like, if you guys had carte blanche and you could bring your own input on a character, or was he very like, "This is what I want, you know, this is do this"?
I think the guy was great, and he also seemed to be incredibly empowering. And I think I think he's, you know, I can only speak for this one movie, but he seemed to just hire all of the people that were so right for the role, you know. And I mean, he definitely had his vision, and we kind of come to stuff together. But it really just was, you know, he's an empowering director, you know, and collaborative. But he's also incredibly dialed, meaning like he goes there, he's got stuff so pre-visualized, and it's so well pre-visualized, you know. I mean, we were all kind of doing the comic book, so we were all just looking for, okay, here's this scene, and it would seem like he was following the comic book, and all the actors were calling. It was almost like the blocking was pretty done. You just look at them, oh, there we go, okay, over there. Oh, hands in my pocket, all right. You know what I mean? It's like you just wanted to pay homage to the comic book. But I really can't say enough of like his passion for that project. I think that was like one of the films that he wanted to do the most of. I think even to this day, there's been, you know, I knew that he also really wanted to do the Dark Knight. Is that what it's called? But it wasn't the one. It wasn't the one that they.
Not the Nolan trilogy. You wanted to adapt the Dark Knight?
No, I think that, well, there was a movie called The Dark Knight, but I don't think it was the actual comic book, right?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember for the life of me who wrote that one off the top of my head.
Well, maybe they kind of spun off it, but at any rate, it was, you know, I just know that he just loved that thing, and I think he did a great job. It's got to be, to me, one of the most, you know, true renditions of a comic book, you know, put to film, you know.
Does anyone have a non-nightmare related question before we do a deep dive on Elm Street? All right, come on up if you got a non-nightmare question.
So on the subject of Rorschach, what do you see in a Rorschach ink blot?
What do I see? A pretty butterfly. You know, oddly enough, when I look at an ink blot, I see an ink blot. And I've never understood this whole Dr. Rorschach thing. No, that's a great question, but you usually, I mean, a lot of times those ink blots all do seem to be kind of folded, right? So you see the symmetry of it. And I suppose you can, you just, a lot of times it is a butterfly, isn't it? You know?
Or maybe reading too much into it.
I've never really followed that science. You know, that seems like a psychological, I don't know how they can actually get from point A to point B with like, oh, let's test your psyche. What do you see? It's not fucking mic stand. But you know what I mean? I don't know. Alright, thank you. Cool, thanks. I think symbolically it's really cool, right? From like what we think that it represents and what the psychology represents, and then how that's applied to this character. It's like, what do you see in that character, in that movie? How does that relate to you? You know, that character is, in a weird kind of way, has informed my life in some sort of ways. And I think one of the biggest ways that it's informed me is that character was so black and white, and humanity wants so fucking hard for everything to be black and white. It's apparent in so much of the discourse now with everything, and the truth is always going to be everything is 1,000 million shades of gray, and that's one of the things that I really learned from that character. But I'm like everybody else, man. I still, want everything to be black and white because it just seems like we are hardwired to think that.
So you were in Watchmen, and you were also in Preacher. How did that come about?
That one was cool. Those guys, Seth and Evan were, making that show. They were shooting it in at least that first season in Albuquerque, and they thought of me, and I got the call. Are you interested in this? I'm like, oh yeah. Great role. The first season on that, I loved the whole show, but I really loved the first season and the writing, because there's something to me, it's true with like all of the comic book stuff, like all the comic book movies. I always like the origin stories much better than the ones that follow. It's just, to me, that's kind of, there's usually just more going on in there. So I thought there was a bit of that. My favorite part of that whole thing was getting, like, what is up with these angels? You don't know what they are, and you slowly realize there's these angels. And then I also love that slow burning thing with the cowboy. You know what I mean? It's like the show would start, it's like 10 minutes or 1830s. It's like, okay, what's going on here? And that thing was so cool, actually, when we were working on it. Obviously I watched the pilot because my character's not in it. So I get hired when they get picked up, and so I go out there and I read that first script, and I'm like, man, the writing is so good on this. And I can't remember if I read the second script or not, but I got to this point of going like, I'm liking this so much, I want to be like everyone else and watch this show on TV. And I'm being serious, because I figured like, well, as a character, I only need to know what I need to know, and if there's some things that I'm missing that somebody will tell me if I need to know it, but it's like, a lot of times it's almost, there's stuff that your character maybe shouldn't know, which again, you're acting, it's fine if you know it, but to me it felt like, let me do it this way, and that was one of the very few things where it's like, let me just dig in there. I had a great time playing that character. It was a good part, and it was fun sinking into that dude. And then working across from, really Dominic, so good. But, it was really good actors to play across from. And then, man, when that movie came out, it was super fun getting to go and, just sitting there turning it on and watching it. He knew nothing about those angels. He's like, what are these guys? It was too cool. Hey, say man.
Yeah. Only you. First of all, I'm going to take it back to Rorschach.
Okay.
I said I'm going to take it back to Rorschach because I love him. I'm sorry. Nothing personal. There was a lot of material from the extended cuts that didn't make it into the original, what was released in movie theaters. But there were some really pivotal moments that I think were huge for Rorschach. And of those that got cut, which ones, if you remember, were you kind of most devastated about, like, that being included? Because it is incredibly faithful to the comic.
Some scenes were cut out of the movie.
I'm really sorry to let you know that.
It's called Zach. You know what? I'm kind of familiar with. Let me ask you this: were those scenes in the director cut that you're talking about?
Yeah, there are two. There's like the ultra mega one, and then like the director's cut. So one was a little bit longer, the other one was like 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I ever saw the full cut because the reason why I knew it was a full cut is it included the Black Crater. And I just never wanted to see that in the movie. I remember when I was reading the book, every time I'd get to that part, oh, gotta read this.
You had so many extra parts that got cut out.
Were they at the director's cut? Or were they cut out of that one too?
It's kind of a blur. I've seen all of it. So.
Yeah, you know what's weird is like, I really don't remember what was cut out or not.
Oh, a lot of the psychiatrists talked when he was in jail.
Oh, man, I don't know that I noticed. Or I don't know that it bothered me just because stuff gets cut out of movies. And even the theatrical one was like 2 hours and 47 minutes or something like that. And so I can't remember if that stuff was in the director's cut though. Like if they put that back in there. I do know like the one thing I think everybody really remembers from the director's cut, I say everybody, like me, like the big difference was all of the first night out guy stuff, like that subplot was really cool. And that whole like fight sequence with him was epic. And the older I get, the more I can identify with it. It's like, you think you're doing it right, but you're getting this shit beat out of you.
What was that about you guys, when they break you out, and you guys have your back and forth with Sally, not Sally, but Sally's daughter, her emotions talking.
Yeah.
It's just getting back and forth. And it's just really funny, but it's so perfect, and that's like straight from the comic.
Yeah. Yeah, but I need to see it again. The last time I saw the movie was actually with Zach and it was at and his wife Deborah and the editor and Larry, the shooter. We were at the Pasadena School of Arts, I think the college out there that he graduated from, and he was having a weekend where he was showing like 3 movies, and I think it was 300, Watchmen, and the Dark Knight, or is one, or the one you like that he did. Check that one. I think it was the first one. Yeah.
Man of Steel was the first one. Man of Steel.
No, it was the first, the Justice League, right?
I think so.
Yeah. 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 Is that Justice League? Because the one that he like redid after Abrams did it. Was that Justice League?
Justice League.
Yeah, Zack Snyder.
Yeah, that thing was like, I was blown away by that. I remember thinking, because everybody's like, restore the Justice League Snyderverse thing, and you know, oh yeah, that sounds great, and everybody was chiming in, and I wanted to see it. But I just assumed it was going to be a little different, like a few cutout scenes or something like that. It was like epically different. That movie actually reminded me of Watchmen. It was that. I mean, that thing was awesome. And the graphics were different. I mean, the tone was different. How much better was the guy on fire? I don't know, the guy that was half robot or whatever. Cyborg. I mean, that whole thing was so much better. I'd say I didn't realize that they really took what he was doing and said, we want this to be a Marvel movie. And that's what they kind of did. And I enjoyed that first one. I enjoyed the one that they did. But boy, his was so different, so cool, man. I thought it was epic. I remember like putting that thing on and thinking, well, maybe so long I'll watch it too. And it was just all one, you know. I even loved the ratio of it. The fact that it was like so desaturated. It was almost like, I think they even did another version that was full black and white, right? Does that sound right? But yeah, it's very cool.
Oh, the topic I've been wanting to talk about for 15 years. And I love the movie, so I'll just start with that. Leading up to your coming back in this panel, I went into the comments section of social media posts and YouTube, and what I saw surprised me 15 years later was people saying Nightmare 2010 was my introduction to Elm Street, you know, and then the other one spinning off of Release the Snyder Cut was Release the Samuel Bayer Cut of Nightmare on Elm Street. So much like Elm Street 2, Jason X, Halloween 3, it's taken time, but it seems like it's found its fan base. Looking back 15 years, how do you think the film has aged?
Well, I haven't seen it in a while. So, are there still arrows in my back?
No, you're good.
You know, I need to see the movie, but I do, along with the ones that you're saying, I do feel that it's you know, aging pretty well from the standpoint of you know, more people seem to be open and receptive to it, and I think they recognize it as one of like 10 movies, and that it doesn't take away from the other films. It's just this one over here.
Right.
You know, at some point in time, there's going to be some other ones, I would imagine. That character is so famous. I mean, they'll probably be. It's like Frankenstein. I mean, how many of those? You know what I mean? I'm sure in 100 years there's going to be more Frankensteins and more Freddy Kruegers. I remember my mother-in-law was, if you mention like something about Freddy Krueger, she would know that you're talking about like a monster. But then I would say, well, what do you think of Nightmare on Elm Street? And she'd be like, I've never heard of it. You know what I mean? It's like that thing somehow transcended. It's become like a campfire story. But yeah, I mean, I know that, you know, all of these years, I know that there's a bunch of people that, you know, don't like it. But I've always met a lot of people that do, you know, and I think the internet has always kind of worked that way. And in the sense that, you know, and I think this is kind of to do with a lot of stuff too, not just like this film or films in general. It's that there's like literally, there's a small minority of people are actual commenters on the interweb. It's like you can almost see this in the algorithm when you see how many people view something. Can be this number like this, and then how many people will do a like or a heart or a hate button or whatever, and then that number's down like this, and then the actual amount of people that comment on something are like this. And for the longest time, when it comes to politics or films or all sorts of stuff, everybody seems to give these guys an awful lot of weight, you know. And there's the whole world, and And I think sometimes there's something to be said for that, but sometimes it's like we're all kind of listening to the, fringe group or the loudest voices,
The film was a box office success. You guys were like #1 at the box office, I think 2 weeks in a row, turned a profit. I don't want to say what happened, but what ultimately led to the decision not to continue?
I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I do know that after a period of time, after we made the movie, and I'm not sure, it seems to me that this would somehow be connected a little bit, but I'm not certain, is it could have been to like the critical response on it. That was definitely in there somewhere, right, to weigh into it. But I also know that the New Line Cinemas, their rights to the franchise was coming to an end at some point. I don't know how long after the movie, but those rights did revert back to the Wes Craven estate.
Right.
So those guys, I'm sure, at some point in time, they'll probably want to do something. I haven't heard. I have no idea. But I wouldn't imagine it wouldn't include me. They would probably do it, a younger, newer Freddy, and hopefully be super bold, do something like original with it.
Looking back at like some of the material was taken out of the movies, included on the special features. There's like two different alternate openings, a whole different alternate ending. There was some stuff, like scenes didn't make it, but there was footage of it. I'm kind of curious if you have any recollection of it. It looked like there was a scene with you and Kyle Gallner in what looked like a church, and then you popped out of his head at one point. You wore a giant Kyle Gallner head and unzipped it.
Yeah, I think those were two different scenes that we did. One was a church. I guess that just didn't fit into the movie for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I do remember the weird story about it was me popping out of some bed, right?
Kyle Gallner's head, yeah.
So this is just I don't know why I'm sharing this, but this is just a memory that comes to mind. So I'm sitting there, camera's there, they're getting ready to put this head on, and I'm supposed to come out of it doing, I can't even remember what, right? But you want your head to be in that space because they're getting ready to roll, and put this, we're all in there, we're all ready to go. And right before the guy said roll, a crew guy goes, wow, Michael Jackson just died.
What was it?
Michael Jackson.
Jeez.
And I'm like, oh, fuck. Hold on, guys. And I can't remember, we definitely had to take a minute, because how do you do that, right? It's just like, okay, ready, and then, oh, by the way, don't let this mess out again. But, yeah, that's, for some reason, that memory is just kind of stuck in my head. But, yeah, there was definitely a lot of different reshoots on that movie. After we shot the movie, there was at least 2 reshoots, and maybe a third, I can't fully remember. But I do remember I was shooting a show called Human Target in Vancouver. And so I was pretty booked up, and there was one Christmas season where I want to say we worked for a week or 2 over the holidays, because that's the only time I had where we were reshooting. I think we did 2 or 3 different endings to that movie. And I think they were testing and just trying to get it to, try to work.
There was the one that made it with the box cutter, and the one, just my opinion, that I think they should have went with is when Rooney pulls you out and you're not hurt. She just bludgeons you with the baseball bat. I mean, given the subject matter, to me, yeah, it's more of a mind fuck if you see the face of the person who did that to you, but at the same time, it's got to be empowering in the way she finally does you in the end.
Yeah, man, I don't really fully remember those endings. I mean, you dig in there and see it, like on the hard media, right? They had those deleted scenes and stuff.
Who has a nightmare question? Come on, you got a chance to ask it after 15 years. Come on up.
So my question is there's been a rumor on the internet for years that in the OG Nightmare on Elm Street, you were supposed to play Glenn, but then Johnny Depp somehow took it from you. Is that true?
That's not true.
I I've just heard that for years and always been asking that. The other question I have is do you feel like you were kind of put in a hard position, like playing Freddy Krueger, like where people just weren't going to accept someone else for the role, like kind of like what Johnny Depp was with Willy Wonka? And would you feel like that? Like they gave you an amazing cast, an amazing script, but like people were just going to give you a hard time regardless of how great the movie was, simply because it wasn't already. Do you feel like you kind of got screwed in that sense?
Well, I wouldn't say screwed. I think that's just part of the challenge. It's like, you know, it's. I mean, that was definitely, you know, something that we're aware of, and you just, you know, it's the kind of thing where you take all of that into account when you're trying to decide whether you want to do the movie or not. And at the end of the day, man, it's Freddy Krueger. You know, you gotta play that part. You just gotta go and do it. And if nothing else, you know, I'll ultimately help be a bridge to where, you know, the next guy that comes along, because that character's too famous, man. That you want to. I definitely wanted to play that. I knew it was going to be challenging, and it was. There was definitely no sense of like competing with the goat. You know, it was like just get in there and do a version of it. You know, they want to kind of get back to its darker roots of the first one, so we kind of leaned into that, and. You know, I've actually always felt pretty good about the movie and the character. You know, you know, no, I don't feel like great about it. Like, oh, fuck, that was brilliant. What's up? I just thought, okay, that's pretty. You know, for a remake of it, it felt good. I like the fact that they kind of had a, you know, bossy look to it. And like I said, I think in the future, definitely, you know. I can bridge that the next guy, people are going to be now more open to, you know, 35-year-old Freddy, 40-year-old Freddy, you know, just because, you know, but, you know, forever Robert's going to be the goat on it, and rightfully so. I mean, that guy, he's got an entire life of playing that character, of making that character super famous, and shit. But, you know, his involvement in that movie, you know, was a big piece of what made New Line Cinema. So it was great to get to put those shoes on. But, you know, I got little feet, so they were some big ass shoes.
You mentioned alluding to the future. If the powers that be called you tomorrow and said, we have an idea and want you to come back, would you return? And if so, what does a sequel to 2010 look like to you?
Say that last part.
What would a sequel to 2010 look like to you?
You know, I don't fully know the answer to the first part of that question. You know, part of me would be like, fuck yeah, that'd be great, right? But then cut to me about 7 days ago. I'm on a set in North Carolina, and I knew that they were going to do some little prosthetics on me. So I was thinking, okay, well, no big deal. It would probably be like a 30 minutes or something simple. And then the makeup lady said, came up where everybody's on the set. And we're going, all right, so they're doing this thing, and it looks like you're going into the special effects makeup truck for 3.5 hours. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? Oh, that's what it says here. And I'm thinking there's a mistake, and I walked in there, and sure enough, no, what these guys had planned was like 3.5 hours. Now, we luckily did it in 2.5, but that 2.5 would have still been like, what? And these guys were great, but man, I swear you sit in that chair and they start with that glue. It's fucking Nightmare on Elm Street flashback. I'm like, oh fuck, here we go. And it's just like, yeah, God. I mean, it's like, it's torture. There's a part of it where, you know, you gotta be in the mind space for it. So when they spring it on you, and suddenly you're just, you know, I kind of had a similar experience to playing the Terror on The Tick, the TV show The Tick. The director said, oh, they're just gonna, you know, I'm thinking they're gonna spackle or something. And I get out there, it was just after The Preacher. I literally wrapped that day, jump on a plane. I'm getting into New York at midnight. For some reason, I'm the one saying, I should go to the set, and these guys should do a test. And we're like, oh, okay. But the makeup guys were like these super talented guys that just do, like they worked on SNL for a long time from the standpoint of like, they can do anything really good, really fast. But I get in there, it's midnight, and I walk in and there's all of these appliances laid out. I'm like, no, I'm gonna be out here for 6 months. And so the guy kind of went, all right, we can get rid of the nose, we'll get rid of the chin and the lips. But Tara had all of these pieces. We reduced it down to this one thing on the sides. And then they arted in the rest, and it looks great. So we didn't need all that other shit, but it was like, oh God. But, so anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying, like, I'd have to think about that part. There was a lot of days in that makeup. And I remember when I took that part, I know some people that are close to Robert, and they were like, well, you tell him he's gonna hate that shit or something, or like, you know, use a lot of EDAP, which is like really strong skin conditioners, because that stuff does really mess with your skin when you do multiple days in a row over time. So I like, you know, big props to Robert all those years putting that stuff on. There's another guy that just blows me away when I think about his career. You guys know who Doug Jones is, right? My God, that guy has been glued into more stuff than maybe anybody. And he's a brilliant actor, and he's done such amazing work, you know, covered in all this stuff, so I can really identify with him and feel for him when he goes through and what Robert went through all those years. And, you know, I've done a lot of that type of work, but like I would say Rorschach is one of the big ones of working where you're covered. Right. But man, that was just glorious. But here's all this raincoat. Okay, ready for that? Yep. All right, there we go. They did the squiggies later, you know. But
so the door may not necessarily be closed, is what you're saying.
well, I mean, it would be. It's hard to say. You know what I mean? It's hard to say. I would imagine that they want to do something different. That's what I would think that they want to do. You know, it would be fun being involved with it in some sort of way.
When you took the part, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I think I remember reading somewhere that you were contracted for a 3-picture deal. Did they lay out like what their overall plan was, or were they just going to take it one movie at a time?
It was one movie at a time.
Okay, so they didn't have any plans for sequels at the time?
No, I mean, not that I was aware of.
Okay.
I mean, they might have. It's like the first one was you know, so much based on the original.
Right.
You know, or to a degree. I mean, they did some stuff with it that was, you know, made it like I love the micro amps and stuff like that. But
does anybody have any nightmare questions before we start wrapping up? Time really quick. Yeah, we got a couple minutes. Any upcoming projects you want to promote while you're up here? How can fans follow your career? You're very interactive on Facebook from what I've seen.
you know, I just kind of started doing that in the last. I started that account in like I don't know 2009 or something, and then kind of ignored it like an idiot. And now it's really kind of hard to get that stuff going right because the whole world is in it. But I've been doing that on Facebook. Just recently opened a TikTok thing, and I'm locked out of Instagram. I'm literally locked out of Instagram. Some people kind of opened an account for me that had the account for the tick, that were running all of the social media, and never gave me the information to get into it. And so I've got this account that's verified that I don't have the username or the password to get into it. And so there's been a time where I'm going, well, the heck with it, I'll just do my own. So I'd go on there and I'd do my own and then get kicked off for impersonating me. Algorithm doesn't even check. Whatever that is. But now I forget what the question was.
Upcoming projects you want to promote?
Well, you know, the one I'd like to promote would be the one called Your Host, which we already talked about, which is on Amazon and on Apple TV, which was that horror film.
And I think you're working on something called Widow right now?
Yeah, it was just now shooting that. That's wrapping up. Did a cool little thing in that. Also, there's a movie, I believe they shot some of it, at one of the Monster Manias called The Block.
Yes, they were filming, somebody was filming scenes at one of the Cherry Hill shows for it.
Yeah, it's called The Block with Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and which is cool. When I was reading the script, I was kind of thinking, man, those guys should actually try to just go and crash an actual con, and they did. So it was pretty cool. And that was fun. I play you know what? I play a good guy in that one. And the one that I just did, I kind of play a good guy. I know, it's amazing, right? I want to write that down.
All right, give it up for, oh, you got one? Come on up, last one.
So you're talking about some of the newer films that you've done, and they've been indie films, you know, not the big budget.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons of doing something like that with somebody with your career, having such big films going into these smaller films?
Well, I've kind of always done some smaller films, but it's just it's where I'm getting work, you know. So it's just kind of bounces around. Hopefully, some bigger stuff will come up. But I'm enjoying you know, working on the small indies as well. You know, we're all going to be AI here in any minute. Hopefully, they'll keep making these you know, independent films. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, I'm just really glad to be working.
All right, guys, give it up for Earle Haley.